Hey guys, what's up? Time for another basic video. You know, old stuff that I used to do before I started showing my face to you lovely people. And I want to talk about my theories as to why these YA adaptations are failing at the box office as of late. With the most recent being The Mortal Instruments City of Bones. So, without further ado, let us begin. Alright, so these are my 5 theories as to why the YA adaptations are failing at the box office. I'm going in order from least plausible to most plausible. My first theory is that the negative reviews are pushing away the audience. Now, if you've noticed, Warm Bodies is the only YA adaptation this year to be truly successful. I mean, we don't know yet if Mortal Instruments or Percy Jackson are going to be true failures at the box office. Percy Jackson less likely than Mortal Instruments right now, but it's too early to tell with either one. But you never know, especially with the past 3 films that have come out. But anyways, Warm Bodies was the only one to pull in any kind of success, and it was the only one to have mostly positive reviews, holding an 83%, I believe, on Rotten Tomatoes, whereas Beautiful Creatures, The Host, and The Mortal Instruments hold a 43, a 9, and a 13. Yeah, those aren't good numbers, especially those last two. So, naturally, I'm sure audiences would be appalled by these low ratings and just kind of decide to skip out on this one, or maybe wait till DVD, instead of going and paying $20 at the movies. And so that's probably one of the drawbacks to these films. Now, why is this the least likely of my theories? Well, take a look at Twilight. Not a single one of those has a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with the highest rated one being a 49%. So, obviously, those are not generally well received by critics. So, that's obviously not a huge drawback if Twilight was able to find such massive success with so many critics just hating the films. And so now let's move on to my second theory. My third theory for why these adaptations are failing is marketing. Marketing seems to be not only just the downfall of YA adaptations, but for films in general. If you don't have good marketing, then you're more than likely gonna fail at the box office. It's just a fact. Good trailers and promoting the film enough to where it's in the public eye is what guarantees someone's ticket for that movie. If you aren't promoting it enough, if your trailers suck, then you're not gonna get that audience. They're gonna go and pay their hard-earned money for some other film. So when you have poorly done trailers that don't kind of explain to the audience the film itself, or show them why this is the movie they need to see out of all the other movies coming out in the this year, then then you've got a failure at your hands. I mean, I know a lot of people who were turned off by the Beautiful Creatures trailer because it just looked like another Twilight. It didn't look like anything special, but I'm sure if they had actually gone and seen the movie, it would have, like, people would have actually liked it more than Twilight. I know people who love this movie a lot more than Twilight. So it wasn't like Twilight, but because the trailers showed it that way, that's what people believed it to be. so nobody wanted to go and see it. And also, the film itself just did not do a good job of, like, the trailers did not do a good job of hiding the fact that the film itself diverges so far away from the book. I'm sure if they had managed to, like, cleverly disguise the changes that they made, I'm sure more fans of the series would have rushed out to see this movie. and then because of the surge at the box office, other people who have not read the books would have gone and followed suit. So there's a pattern to all this, and the host, I think, suffered from the same problem as Beautiful Creatures, as not being loyal to the books. Now, granted, I have not read the host book or seen the host movie, so I cannot say so for myself. Mortal Instruments was, for the most part, faithful to the book, so I was definitely quite surprised by this turnout. Which is why I feel like my fourth theory is definitely it fits the Mortal Instruments much more than this theory. My next theory is an overcrowded release schedule. This seems to be a major problem for films this year. There have been so many films to come out in this summer alone that other movies, like, these movies, end up cannibalizing each other, to quote Grace Randolph here. And then basically only one can really come out on top. And Mortal Instruments had to compete with The World's End and Your Next, which, granted, not much competition there, but it had to compete with The Butler, which was already a critical success from the previous. So naturally, it's up against some pretty hefty competition. And the host had to deal with Tyler Perry movie and G.I. Joe. And then Beautiful Creatures had to deal with Safe Haven, Live Free to not that one, A Good Day to Die Hard, and Escape from Planet Earth. 3 other movies. So of course there was only one was really going to come out on top for each of those films. And it was obviously going to be the ones that were either previous successes or part of pre-existing franchises. The Host, Beautiful Creatures, and Mortal Instruments were all first attempts at a franchise. If these had been the second or the third attempts at a franchise, or installments I should say, then it probably would have garnered a lot more money than it did with its first attempts. That's just a fact right there. But because these were the first movies and franchises, they didn't do well. They had to compete with other films who were already part of franchises, because the obvious the obvious bet is, if you're going up against, if it's 2 movies and one is from an already existing franchise and the other is not, unless that last film is extremely hyped, has been well marketed, and has been promoted and enough to be in the eyes of the audiences, then they probably would have done better than, say, the film that is already part of a franchise. But because they weren't, the film that's already a part of a franchise is naturally going to beat that last film. It's the whole franchise thing. If you're a part of a franchise, you're pretty much guaranteed a box office success. So, yeah. And lastly, the most obvious theory as to why these YA films are failing is people are just tired of YA, period. Now, granted, that's not to say that fans of these novels are tired of it, but average movie-going audiences are probably tired of it. I mean, Harry Potter lasted for 10 years, Twilight lasted for 5, and Hunger Games is gonna last for 4. So I'm pretty sure people are gonna want a break from all these films. I mean, Twilight pretty much beated the whole thing dead for a good while, so it's no surprise that that they haven't, like, that people basically aren't going to see these films that are trying to be the next Twilight or have that same level of success. So yeah, those are pretty much my theories as to why the YA films are failing at the box office. Let me know down below if you agree with any of these and which one you think is the most plausible. And I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Please subscribe, and this is MovieNerd15 signing out.